So, the Haney-Lomachenko fight is around the corner, and I wanted to share with you some of my insights about it. So I've analyzed some of their fights and come up with a few keys to victory for both. First, let's start with Haney and his latest fight against Kambosos. First thing you notice in Haney when fighting outside is the way he extends his left hand to keep his opponent at bay, which is the same thing he did in his last fight against Kambosos. He used his left jab as a range finder and his opponent couldn't get in close. Haney is a boxer who's most effective on the outside, but once his opponent manages to get inside, that's when he is in difficulty. So that left arm he puts out there is important for him to stay safe, but also to set up his shots. Right there, for example, you see Haney holding his hand up to see if Diaz is in target range before firing the right hand. And that's something he improved against Kambosos, as he no longer needs his left hand now. He just has the perfect timing. Offensively, he had a very effective jab, lead right hand, and a devastating 1-2 combo. And I've gotta say, it's hard for me to grasp how he times those punches so well. Even in slow motion, it almost seems like he knows when Kambosos will get in target range. Although, if his opponent breaks the distance, Haney must do what he did in his last fight, which was to neutralize him and break his momentum. And he did so by ducking under when Kambosos would come forward, then tie him up and spin around him to put him off balance. Haney's defense was so effective in that fight that even if Kambosos landed some shots, none of them were really hurtful. There was only one time when he really landed clean, and that was that punch.
Oh, nice right hand from Kambosos.
Haney's rematch with Kambosos was such a boxing demonstration that I couldn't find any real flaws. So I had to dig up a couple of years back when he fought Diaz, who, just like Loma, happens to be a southpaw, and there I was able to see some weaknesses. But more on that later. Next thing Haney could do is to add looping shots to his array of punches. Right here you see him against Diaz. He goes straight to the body with the right and comes back upstairs with the left hook. That could be effective against Loma, who showed vulnerabilities to looping punches against Ortiz when he tried to move forward. There was also a point during that fight in which Ortiz switched to southpaw and was able to score significantly against Loma. Maybe Haney could try that as well. Next up for Haney is to show physical dominance. One thing important to say is, although Loma and Ortiz had the same punching output, Loma had the cleanest and arguably the most accurate punches. But when you look at the fight as a whole, Ortiz, who's about the same size as Haney, muscled Loma repeatedly and made himself look like he was the fresher, stronger fighter, which could have an effect on the scoring of the judges in terms of ring generalship. So that covers Haney's keys to victory. Now let's go over Loma's. Loma can't win this fight by just staying on the outside. He must close the gap between him and Haney. In his last fight, Loma waited for Ortiz to fire his jab before countering with his own over the top and following up with a 1-2 combo. Haney showed vulnerabilities to the jab over the top against Diaz. As you see right there, Diaz catches Haney's left hand and lands over the top. Same here when he tries to keep his opponent at bay. Diaz catches that jab again and throws his own over the left. He then finally gets in range, follows up with a 1-2 combo, and smother his opponent. Loma can also close the distance by just throwing his lead right, and once he's in range, continue to connect. The next key for Loma to succeed is being active. One of the biggest mistakes he made when he lost against Lopez was being passive and giving too many rounds away. So he's gotta find his rhythm early on in the fight. Finally, Loma must use all his tricks in the bag to be dominant during clinches. Just like he showed in his fight against Comey, when he clinches, he throws that sneaky left hook inside, which was enough to do damage and send his opponent to the canvas. Now I've got to give you my prediction, and I must say it's a close one to call. It's only logical to go for Haney because the odds are stacked against Loma, even though he's technically the superior boxer to me. But I think Haney is going to be too much work for him, not just to win, but win by a significant margin. Because as we know, politics can get involved in this game, especially in Vegas. So my heart goes for Loma, but logic in my mind, I think Haney wins it in a close competitive fight.